For those of you that are curious about what happens if you're a green card holder, that is a Form I-551, resident alien, typically known as a green card. What happens if you're a green card holder and you legally change your name? Well, I'll tell you the process I went through for my son, on behalf of my son, my teenage son. And I went through it just 3 days ago. So, first of all, a little background. My son, he's my stepson, and he had his birth father's name. And he had his birth father's name when I filed the petition for he and his mother to join me in the United States. So I had already married his mother, my wife, and I had done that in their home country, which their home country is the Philippines. So we had gotten married there, and so her last name was already the same as mine. His was not. Of course, the question might spring to mind immediately, well, why didn't you just get that done in the Philippines? Well, yeah, that would have been logical. But things take a long time in the Philippines, in the court system, years. And we didn't have that sort of lead time. So we brought him over with the name on his birth certificate. When he got here, he started lobbying immediately to have his name legally changed so that it would match his mother's last name and my last name, which, is understandable. We all get along pretty well, and he wanted to feel more like part of the family. He didn't want to distance himself from the family, the new family. He wanted to be more intertwined in it, and to him that was a significant status marker of his new family situation. So he got his name changed, court order, here at county. It was quick, easy. But then we had to get his name changed on his green card because he can't have mismatched ID, and particularly nowadays you want everything to match if you get pulled over, right? Or questioned. So here's the way you have to do this. You have to sign on to the USCIS site, and that's an acronym for the United States Citizenship. Let's start over. For the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services unit of the federal government. You have to sign on to their site. And this was the same site I had to go through in order to be the petitioner for their resident visas. So you have to go onto this site, and you have to click through the various options and click through name change. You find that. And there's a form. Of course there's a form. There's a form for that. And that form is Form I-90, Form I-90. And this is the same form you would use for, like in my son's case, my stepson's case, he wants to legal name change to our family last name, or let's say you got married. Obviously, this is going to be mostly for a situation with women changing their last name, but it does happen the other way around once in a while these days. So you get married and you want to change your name to your spouse's last name, you would use the same form. Or let's say, and this happens too, let's say that for whatever reason, people are having a real tough time pronouncing your name. It just isn't doable for a lot of Americans for whatever crazy reason. And some people, they change their names. They change their names, and for whatever reasons they think best. I wouldn't do that, but people do it all the time. So it's all the same form. It's this form I-90. Now, a couple of years ago, you could do this on behalf of your minor child, but like I have an account there because I did the petitions for them to enter the United States. But you can't do that anymore. Now you have to set up a separate account, even if it's a minor child. They have to have their own account. So even if the kid's 6 months old, they need a separate account. And of course, anything you do, any kind of form you do for a minor on there, if they're not filling it out, and they're not going to be filling it out, you have to fill out the section in the form that says preparer. So you prepared the form on their behalf. And there's also a form for interpreter, should that be needed, but it wasn't needed in my case, my son's case, my case. But we did have to fill out the preparer form, all of my information. Speaking of information, they want everything on this form. Not just the usual, height, weight, color of hair, color of eyes, birthplace, etc., age, birth date. They want lots of stuff that you're going to have to go retrieve documents for. You should just have all those documents when you get online on the form, in the form. They want to know, where your visa was approved, what geographical location. I mean, for him, it was the U.S. Embassy in Manila. They want to know what date that was. They want to know what date you actually entered the United States. You touched ground, United States soil, and where that happened. So, for my wife and my son, that was SFO, San Francisco International Airport. That's where they first, came into the United States. That's where they first touched U.S. soil. Well, concrete, but you get the idea. So they want a lot of information. They want the type of visa you have, everything. So it does, you should put aside some time if you're going to fill out this form. Uninterrupted time. I didn't test, they have a save function. I can tell you from a few years ago when I was filling out all the forms for both of them to get to the States, that save function was not entirely up to date. Sometimes it would leave off the last 5 minutes. I don't know if it was slow posting internally on their website. I don't know. But I didn't trust it this time. I put aside the time that I would have uninterrupted time. So we get through all that, and it's got all his contact information, not yours. I mean, it's got your preparer information as a parent, but not the contact information. They will be contacting him. His email, his phone, his mobile phone, etc. So anyway, we get through all that, and then we get to the end. And let me tell you, we did all the input. It's all electronic. No human was involved on their end. And all the information is exactly the same. It's just confirmation of information they already have. And you would think that that process would be, pretty quick, pretty low labor quotient. But the United States government doesn't see it that way, and the Form I-90 fee was $415 for a name change, to change his last name and give him a new card. Yeah, $415. That's pricey. That's some pretty good coin. I mean, think about, when you go to the DMV and you have to change, women get married, they change their last name, or, you have your address changed, whatever. It's what, $35, $45, and they push a new card to you through the window. Doesn't work like that with the USCIS. It does not work like that. Okay, so we paid them. My bank account went down a little bit. And they don't give you any information. They don't say, we'll be back to you soon, or back to you in a week, or they don't give you anything. They just confirm that you paid. They did get back to us very quickly, though. They sent an email to him 2 days later saying, okay, we want you to come to USCIS location and undergo a biometric interview. And a biometric interview is not so much an interview, but rather you just show up and they take photos of you, they fingerprint you, things like that. So, okay, asshole, but okay. And it was pretty quick. It was 2 weeks from when they sent the email. And in fact, the date was April 14th, which was 3 days ago from the date that I'm doing this podcast. So this happened 3 days ago. 9 o'clock in the morning, downtown Portland, at their building. We live in Salem, about an hour away from Portland. Salem's an hour south down Interstate 5. All right, so I get everything. I mean, I don't know. Again, there's no information given, really. No peripheral information about what might happen in addition to the biometrics if they want to do an interview also. So I take everything. I take his, all the paperwork they've sent me. I take his birth certificate. I take his visa application from before. I take his Oregon State driver's license. I take everything, in a big envelope, because I don't know what they're going to want. And if they don't want something I have, it's okay. I can just take it back home with me. And if they want something I don't have, then that's a problem. It's gonna mess things up. At the very least, it will delay things, and it might be worse than that, especially considering the current environment for green card holders. So I take everything, and we leave really early, so we're not late. And we left so early, we were able to get breakfast beforehand. We got there so early. So we show up at the building at 8:45, And they were explicit about that in the instructions, that you cannot show up, more than 15 minutes early. So we get there, and it's guards with guns, lots of security. It's like the airport. We have to go through body scanners, empty all our pockets, put everything in the bin, et cetera, et cetera. We get through that part of security, and then we're directed to go stand in a line, which is an intake line for the biometrics, and it's a pretty long line, and we're at the end of it. And we finally get up to the desk, to the reception desk, the intake desk. And what are the odds? What are the odds? The woman there is a Filipina. She's from the Philippines. I mean, she's a U.S. citizen now, but she's from the Philippines. And so, she's being very nice to my son, very solicitous. And she's an older woman, probably in her 50s, and gives us all the stamps and everything, and we go sit down in the waiting room. We weren't in the waiting room that long, really. Surprisingly, by the time he was called up for his biometrics, the whole room, and it was a pretty big open room, was just about empty. I mean, we got there, it was, shoulder to shoulder, and when we finally got called up for his interview, or for his biometrics, take his biometrics, there was hardly anyone in the room. It went pretty quickly. And again, another coincidence, the woman the Filipina who had been working the desk, they do that in shifts, apparently. And she was now manning the station, the biometric station that my son was going to. And so she was happy to see him again, and, she's asking him about school, and does he like the United States, and, what's he like most, and so forth. She's talking to him in Tagalog, which is the Filipino national language. She's talking to him in Tagalog and English, and he's answering, and they're getting on like old friends. I didn't go up with him to the biometric station. I could have, because he's a minor, but I didn't. I mean, I could see him from my seat, and he's 17. He's almost 18. I mean, I figured if something was wrong, I could figure that out, because I could see them, from my vantage point. So they do the fingerprints, they take photos, some other stuff, and then that's it. I mean, he's done pretty quick. He comes back to me, and I said, "Is that it? I mean, do we have to go to another room?" What did she say? He said, "Well, she said that we just, wait for something in the mail." I said, "Are you sure? Are you sure we don't have to talk to anyone else here?" He said, "Well, go ask her. I don't know." And so I waited till, she had finished up with another person. I went over, and that's what she said. That's what she told him, and that's what she told me. And I said, "Okay, well, that's." I thought this would take a lot longer, because I did think it was going to take a lot longer. I thought we would be there a minimum of 3 hours. And I asked her, I said, "What's the turnaround?" I said, "Provided it's a positive response, they send him a new card." I had brought the court order, changing the legal court order, and we had sent it before online. We'd scanned it and sent it. I said, "So provided it's a positive response," I said, "when could he expect his new card?" And she said, "Well, a couple of years ago, it was pretty bad. Take 9 months." She said, "But it looks like they're turning most of them around within 3 months now." She said, "But it could be earlier." She said, "We've been catching up pretty quick." I said, okay, well, she said, if they need something else, they'll let you know. Well, they won't let you know. They'll email your son. I said, okay. And I mean, it was like a minor miracle, but we walked out of there at 9:41. We walked out the front door at 9:41. So pretty darn quick, much quicker than the minimum 3 hours I had anticipated. Pretty darn quick. And that's it. That's how it worked. And now you know.